Hey, welcome to the show. Today I have Jill or Jillian. She goes by both, but she also goes by the Bitcoin Babe. Welcome, Jillian.
Thank you, Dylan, so much for having me on.
Glad to have you. And I want to start with something that I heard and it said, I forget who said it, but they said Bitcoin changes people. And I found that to be true for myself. And it seems like that might be true for you. Can you speak to how perhaps it's changed you? I know you're doing this challenge. I know it's not quite crypto related, but can you speak to that?
Yeah. And so when you say that Bitcoin changes people, I feel like I changed and then I got into Bitcoin because I saw so much happening. Like, I'm a teacher, I'm in my second year. And during the first year of teaching, we went into the pandemic. So there was just so much going on and I felt very hopeless. And I know you spoke too about, your troubles with your dog and everything and going through a difficult time. A lot of us were going through a difficult time. And I was searching for a solution rather than feeling helpless. I was like, I'm action oriented. I want to do something positive and I want to make an impact and I want to move the world in a positive direction. And that's how I started getting involved in crypto. And what you're talking to about the program I'm doing, which
Yeah.
is 75 hard. And I found that randomly on Instagram. And I'm like, this sounds really cool. This is kind of up my alley. I played water polo for 10 years. I was
Okay.
recruited to UC Berkeley for that. And I've always been an athlete, but after I quit water polo, I really was never consistent with working out. And it's something that was always on my mind. Like, I know
Yeah.
I can do better, you know? And so with this challenge, you do two 45-minute workouts a day. One has to be outdoors. You drink 1 gallon of water, you follow a diet of your choice, you read 10 pages. And you don't drink alcohol for 75 days. And if you like miss any of it, then you have to start over on day one. So it's
All
like
the way back
11
to the
o'clock at
beginning.
night. Yeah, exactly. So it's such a great way to hold yourself accountable. And I'm on day 34 right now. And so far it's been totally transformational because especially last year, it was so stressful teaching during the pandemic because I was doing hybrid teaching where I was teaching online and I also had like 15 to 20 students every single day
Yeah.
in the classroom and online. So I was doing double duty and I'm still a new teacher trying to figure it out. And I developed some pretty poor habits and I couldn't pull myself out of it. And so when summer hit, I was like, something needs to change. And that's why I ended up taking on this challenge. I was like, everything in me was like, yes, let's go. And I mean, at the founders event that we
Yeah.
had a couple weekends ago, it was a challenge because everyone was drinking and partying and I had to carve out time to work out and not participate in a lot of those things. And I was actually having such a great time that people thought I was drinking and they're like, oh, you failed your program. I'm like, no, I'm just having a good time.
Like I can have
And
fun
then,
without alcohol. They can
yeah,
be independent things.
exactly. And that's the biggest thing I realized. There's this collective neurosis we have around drinking
Mhm.
alcohol where we feel like we need to drink that to be included in the gang or, to really have a good time. And I realize I actually have more fun because I don't embarrass myself and I have full control. Not that I was really like a super heavy drinker before, but it just kind of opened up this whole new world where I felt like, oh, I can still live my life and not drink. So I'm
Yeah.
probably going to continue with that even after the program.
Well, and you're like committing to discipline. You are expressing a high time preference. We related back to crypto, like you're investing time and energy today for value in the future, which is a big
Yeah.
thing, especially during these downward trends. But
Yeah.
I want to hit on something that you said. You said that you changed and then you got into crypto. And I know for myself, like I went through that as well because for the longest time I ignored this. And I'm newer to the space. Like I haven't been around 4 or 5 years in the crypto space, but I had heard about it from back in 2013, but it was out of my circle, and the person I was then wasn't able to or willing to accept it. But then something happened over this past year, and I got involved with crypto, and I haven't looked back since. So, can you talk about how that if your experience was similar or how that affected you?
Yeah. And I actually started hearing about cryptocurrency. I don't remember when I first started hearing about it, but I remember listening to podcasts and there was like the Art of Charm. That's the podcast I would
Okay.
listen to a lot. And he was talking about like if you want to do something, if you're unsure what to do, you should be a lawyer for cryptocurrency because that's such a growing industry. And I kind of thought it was this nerdy thing that only gamers used, or it was kind
Yeah.
of like dangerous. Like I really was paying attention to the media when they were talking about the negative things with cryptocurrency. So I kind of closed down to that.
Yeah.
And then with the pandemic, I started to question a lot of the things that I had believed my entire life. I switched political parties. I'm really like kind of took a step back and started doing my own research and coming to my own conclusions about things. And I realized like, and my Aunt Lori got into cryptocurrency and she's
Yep.
like, you got to look into this, you got to do it. And I was
Yeah.
still kind of like listening to like the media saying like, no, it's not good. It's for people that are trying to do illegal activity. And I came to my own conclusion by doing research and realized like, whoa, this is kind of opening up a whole new world for us. And when you control the currency, you control the people. And when you have something like cryptocurrency, you're able to decentralize it. And it really is a way to put the power back into the people. And I'm not saying like I'm anti-government, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I just feel like it's such a great tool. I mean, we see this happening in El Salvador too, where their inflation is, I think they have inflation that's out of control or just unstable currency, where as soon as they get paid, they have to go or they want to go out and spend it because they don't know what it's going to be worth tomorrow. So
Yeah.
for me,
Well,
I feel like it's really,
I think
yeah.
I think that's more Argentina than El Salvador. El Salvador, I think they're pegged to the US dollar, but
Okay.
yeah, or they had the US dollar as their currency. But because they couldn't support their own. But they did adopt Bitcoin. But I think Argentina that's an example that you're bringing up of like really high inflation.
Yeah. And then we start looking at our own inflation. And I always thought like, oh, I never looked at housing as an inflationary asset. Like I didn't
Yeah.
really, I don't know if that's put it in the right way, but I didn't realize that, okay, the house that my parents almost bought down the street for $300,000 now worth $1.2 million. And
Wild.
so I thought like, yeah, and this is in Newport Beach, California. So I was like, oh, it's just because everyone wants to live here. Well, that's part of it. But another part of it is because our dollar is worth way less than it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, how do we protect against this? Because my salary is not going to be increasing at the same rate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that hits home for a lot of people. I know for myself, I've noticed that, and like people I've worked with in the past, just noticing that if your pay didn't increase by the 30 or 40% of the real inflation
Yeah.
over this past year, because they printed so much money. I mean, if you didn't get paid 30 to 40% more this past year, get that raise, like you're getting paid less to do the same job or do more. And that's not fun for anyone. And that definitely makes an impact on people, right?
Absolutely. And so I see cryptocurrency being this kind of like a savior, not really, but it's more just like a tool that we can have control over. It's not someone dictating it for us. We're in control now. So I think it's a really positive thing in the world.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. And I'm curious, what was the first crypto that you bought? Like, what was the one that, what was the one that
So
interested
I
you
had
first?
no idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had no idea what to buy. And Lori was like, okay, you're gonna buy Bitcoin, ETH, and ADA. And I was like, what? Okay. So she just literally like walked me through this in November 2020. So I don't know, like 8 months ago, 9 months ago.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And then I started really learning about it. I attended the first founders event in January 2021. And that's when I started taking off with all my learning. I spend hours a day just listening to YouTube videos, like educating myself on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely one of the most important things about it. I think that's cool. Like as an adult to find something that makes you want to just like dive in and self-educate yourself. Cause I know for myself, school, like I did well in school, but I wasn't like excited about school. And I think a lot of young people feel the same. They're not like excited about school. They want to do things. And school is like making you sit down and like look in a book and study. But then when you get older and you find something that you're passionate about that you can just dive into, it's really freeing to like spend like hours and hours studying a topic.
Yeah, I love that you said that because as I'm a math teacher, I teach middle school. And so frequently the students ask me, when am I ever going to use this? And I really
Yep.
have to think about that. And I think our education should not be at a point where we're like, oh, well, when will they use this? When will they need to calculate the
Yeah.
circumference of a circle? And not saying that we need to throw that all out because there's definitely a lot of value in knowing how to work with equations and ratios and proport all of that. But I just see students are not excited most of the time. And when I can sprinkle in real life things and applications, and I plan to like talk about cryptocurrency and teach students using the things that they need to learn and then applying it to something real life like cryptocurrency, because I think like some of them, when I mentioned Dogecoin, they're like, oh my gosh, like my brother has that. Or
Oh,
so
they
it's
knew
fun.
Dogecoin.
Yeah, they did. And they even knew about the GameStop situation. So that was cool. Like just talking with them about that and kind kind of, yeah, bringing in some more real life things that's happening that does relate to math.
Interesting. So wait, what grade did you say you teach?
Middle school. So
Middle
I work
school.
with sixth, seventh, and eighth graders.
That's awesome. And like that, I think that's very powerful if you can tie in the math that they're learning to like how you would value a cryptocurrency and not like telling them they should buy crypto. But I know there's even
Right.
adults that like think I had my Uber driver back from the Texas event, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But we were talking about crypto, and he's like, oh, I don't know if I want to buy Bitcoin. It's just so expensive. And he's like, I want to buy Dogecoin, and which is, I mean, that's another conversation about Bitcoin versus Dogecoin. But
Meme coin.
it was because it was like 25 cents at the time Dogecoin was, and Bitcoin was like 32,000. And like so, like someone who doesn't understand how it works or how that valuation comes about, they may think that's actually expensive. But $100 in Dogecoin and $100 in Bitcoin is the same thing. Just you're in different vehicles, and those different vehicles can produce different results. So is that
Right.
something that you like have thought about teaching your students?
I would probably use it with teaching, like, how do we work with what is compound interest, what is
Okay.
working it into equations, and then investing. So I would probably bring in like the stock market as well. Like if you invested this, and something that I did when I was working in Irvine, I was teaching math classes and SAT classes over the summer. And these were 16-year-olds. And I had them take the $15,000 they might spend on a brand new car and instead invest it at an 8% growth rate in the stock market for the next 15 years. And I had them calculate what it would be. And they were like, and then I also had them calculate the amount of interest that they would pay on a mortgage. And they were
Mm.
like, oh, where's that money going? Like, why
Yeah.
are we paying the bank so much? They're stealing. And I'm like, well, that's how it works. And most people don't end up calculating how much interest that you're going to pay over 30 years.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's so many other things that go into that too, like house prices going up and value and everything. But yeah, so that's probably how I'd like work it in.
Well, and skills like just like opportunity cost. And I mentioned like high time preference, low time preference, where low time preference is you want everything now, now, now. And high time preference is like you're willing to invest now for your future self. And that's something that like was kind of hit on, but not really hit on when I was in elementary school and middle school and high school and even college. Like I studied economics in college, and like it was mainly just like the math behind it rather than like any sort of practical application of it.
Yeah, I mean, I took like AP calculus and I took calculus at Berkeley, and I'm like, I don't use it,
Yeah.
and unless I'm teaching.
Definitely. Now, I want to go back just a little bit, and I want you to tell me, since you are newer to the space and you're building a business in the space, I want you to like tell me maybe like if you can think back how you felt when you first got into the space, like the sound of cryptocurrency. What would that mean to you? Like, what did you think initially?
Honestly, I wasn't completely sold for like the first 3 months. I was like, I don't know, like maybe this is, I just didn't trust it
Okay.
because I didn't understand it. And I really did. I was like, well, if it's all on the internet, like it could just poof, be gone, or where do I go if I want to get it? Like could not conceptualize it. So once I started to conceptualize it, then I started really diving into it deeper. And then now there's so many different, like, it's not just currency. You have blockchain, you have smart contracts, you have all these different use cases that are going to unfortunately eliminate a lot of jobs, but it will be more convenient, and it's going to save people money in the future, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot of use cases. So can you maybe describe a little bit the differences between that you see between, because I've called it cryptocurrency, but I know that's kind of like not necessarily the right terminology used nowadays.
So the difference between cryptocurrency and like
Like
the other stuff, or
like crypto, like yeah, cryptocurrency, crypto assets. You said blockchain. Like how, like are they the same? Are they different? Like if someone's new getting into space, like how should they look at it?
yeah. So, and I'm by no means an expert. I'm still trying to understand all of this, but for blockchain is used, like Bitcoin is built on blockchain, and it's something that is completely transparent. You can't reverse it, and it's public. So for me, I see so many different ways that we can use this, and it's like solid. So whereas cryptocurrency is like the coins,
Mm-hmm.
and then the blockchain is like what it's built on, and blockchain can be used for a variety of things like contracts. And yeah, I guess that's kind of like the extent of my knowledge so far. So
Yeah, but a lot of
mhm.
opportunity, a lot of like different areas, which is like really exciting. And that like I know I try to tell people that there's just like unlimited opportunities in the space because it's replacing old systems with like new things, new features, and new technology. And that's the exciting part. But like, you don't have to be an expert on like coding blockchain or knowing everything with cryptocurrency. Like, you can help people in other ways, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know the ins and outs of it. And that's why I'm so glad that my aunt just kind of pushed me into it, because sometimes I go into analysis paralysis and I'm like, well, should I do this? Should I do that? And I probably wouldn't have invested if she didn't push me. And that's what I tell other people. I'm like, just start with a couple $100. And that's why, our group, we do like these appointments, because I wouldn't have been able to do it on my own. And I feel like
Yeah.
I'm a tech savvy person, and my aunt like walked me through step by step. Okay. And then how do you transfer it to I did an Exodus wallet. How do you transfer it there and do it safely and make sure that you don't lose things? And so, like you transfer a little bit first, make sure it's the right
Yeah.
wallet, and then transfer all of it. And those are things that I would have never known, nor would have really trusted myself to do that. And on YouTube, there's great tutorials, but I didn't really resonate with a bunch of people. I don't know. It's hard
Mhm.
to find trustworthy people, I think, online that you don't personally know.
I
Not saying
definitely,
that they're not, that you can't trust them, but with your money, it's different.
well, you don't know them and you can't interact with them. There's like a barrier there. So while like they're there talking to you in the videos, it's just like, but then how do I know they have my best interest in mind, right?
Absolutely. And that's like one of the main intentions that Bitcoin Ben has with the founders events where we met,
Yeah.
is to have people on the ground ready to help the public, ready to help people in our communities with this, and someone that they can go to, someone that they can trust, that doesn't have this ulterior motive. Because you go to YouTube and you have these guys that are like pumping up a certain coin, and I made the mistake of doing that. I bought like 500 of Eternity because someone was like totally hyped on it, and then it tanked.
Oh,
And then it was in a MetaMask wallet, and I don't even know how to get into it. Was just like, kind of one of those things where I FOMO'd in, and I'm like, okay, now I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that again.
yeah. So you help people avoid those mistakes with some of your,
Mm-hmm.
because you're doing consulting, right?
Yes.
So
Uh-huh.
you're helping people who are just getting started learn the ins and outs, kind of like your aunt did for you.
Exactly. And just to be that kind of like first person to help these people just get in and do it safely and securely, because it is confusing. Even when people go to Coinbase and they're putting in their information, they're like, wait, it's asking for my ID. Like,
Yeah.
this kind of makes me nervous. Like, what should I do? So,
Yeah. And you're like, no, that's normal. That's, they have to do that.
yep.
That's a regulation. And so if they're doing that, it probably means it's a safer place to be,
Yes. Uh-huh.
even though it seems weird because we're so used to not doing that. It's like a whole transformation.
It is. And it just, we're our own banks, and we need to make sure that we're really careful.
Yeah, that's for sure. Cause you don't want to like send it to the wrong wallet, like you mentioned. Like
Exactly.
that's why you send a little bit first.
Uh-huh.
So uh we did meet at a founders event. And can you describe a little bit more about that? And then I want to hear about the group that you're in and the videos and interviews you're doing there.
Yeah. So the founders event is something. So my aunt met up with Bitcoin Ben, and they just ended up creating these quarterly events that would be people that want to be entrepreneurs in this space. So it's not a typical conference where you go for the entire weekend and they try to sell you on some big package. It's like, no, or like try to get like multi-level marketing. It's not like
Mhm.
that. And I've had people reach out to me asking like, wait, well, what are you doing? Are you selling something? It's like, no, we're actually all doing our own businesses, and we have freedom like that. And that, it's decentralized.
Yeah.
So that was the intention of Bitcoin Ben and Lori. And so they've had 3 events so far. And I know at the April event, and I met Jess and John at the April event as well. And we immediately clicked. And John was like, hey, like, we should start a YouTube show. And we're like, yeah, that sounds great. Because we wanted to have this open conversation that was humble, and we're newbies. And, John's been in the space for quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm fairly new. And so having those different perspectives to keep it grounded, because I realized when I was going to YouTube and watching influencers, sometimes they were way too technical and I had no
Mhm.
idea what was going on. And listening to one person talk the entire time gets a little bit boring. So we're just trying to
Yep.
make it accessible for everyone. And so we created a YouTube channel called Blockchain Millennials, where we
Okay.
like talk about different topics. And we started about a month ago. It took a couple months to get it started. And then now we're doing interviews. Like last night we interviewed Papa Joshua
Oh,
from
nice.
Aster Blockchain Consulting, and it's all about security. Like, how do we make sure that we're taking the right steps to avoid being hacked or phished? So
Yeah.
things that are like applicable and helpful for people. And we have no ulterior motive except just educating people.
But and have you found that there's like a lot of people excited about that education?
Yeah, I was totally surprised by the feedback that we've gotten so far. We already have like 47 subscribers, and I'm like, why are they listening to us? Like we're not even, we just started, but it's
Yeah.
exciting. And then at the last founders event, I had multiple people coming up to me being like, oh, I love your show. And so it was just so awesome to see that people actually were getting value from it, because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. I mean, I know 47 subscribers like might not sound like a lot, but when you just get started and like, and because people, especially on YouTube, they like to, and I think this is a problem. Maybe you can talk about this as well. But the problem that I've seen is that people think that just because someone has a lot of followers or subscribers, that they are producing content that's good, or like that, well, not, maybe not use the word good, but that is useful or correct, when a lot of times it can be just manipulated or just like there for clickbait and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Oh, the clickbait. That is something that I've actually noticed a lot of people within the space trying to avoid now, because the clickbait is playing on everyone's emotions. And yeah, we need like catchy titles to get views, but the clickbait is driving the emotional, like, selling, and when it's going down, or like FOMOing in and making bad decisions. And a lot of people in the space actually realize that it was detrimental. So I agree with that.
Yeah. And like, you really don't need a ton of followers. I think it's like you need 100 loyal subscribers or 100 loyal customers or something like that to really build a successful business. Because like, I, I don't know how many followers Bitcoin Ben has, but he has like on his YouTube, it's like, I don't know, 9,000 or so. Like nothing, like you would see that from the outside and you'd be like, who's this guy? Like if you only look for subscribers, if you only have that view that their content is good based upon how many subscribers they have, which is totally not the right thing, because he can fill up a whole event center with people that like love his content and want to learn more.
Yeah. And totally. And even like on any social media platform, we see sometimes there's like a really hot girl in a bikini and she has a ton of followers, but is she actually providing value?
Yeah.
Um, and are they actually engaged? Is she talking about something meaningful? And for the 47 subscribers we have, I think I wasn't expecting any in the first like maybe 10 episodes. We've done 4, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool that we've already gained a little bit of traction. So
I think that's awesome. And you're doing the show on YouTube. Do you produce any content on Instagram or any other platforms?
right now we're focusing on YouTube. So we do have an Instagram channel, but we're not really creating individual content for that yet, but that will be the next step.
Okay. So you could like chop up the episodes that you do on YouTube when you say
That's
something
what I was doing.
insightful and just like post the quick clip on Instagram.
I actually did that today. I created my first little reels and then posted it. So I'm getting more practice with that too.
Awesome. And I want to go back because I think it's really fascinating. Like you're in a unique position that you are, you're a young adult who's getting into crypto. You got brought into crypto by your aunt, like someone who's older that you would expect. Like she's not too old, but like someone who's older than you, like significantly older than you. And like I was brought into it by my dad. And I've heard lots of stories about like parents trying to bring their kids into crypto, not kids bringing their parents into crypto. But like you see like this like multiple generations getting into it. Do you think do you think the younger generation is like going to be like really into it?
I think they will. I haven't really connected with anyone younger than myself on cryptocurrency yet. And at
Okay.
the founders events, John, Jess, and I immediately gravitated towards each other because we were the youngest people
Yeah.
there. Everyone's like older, like you're saying, multi
Yeah.
generations, and my mom started getting into it, and so my dad's getting into it. And it's definitely not just something for like young people into tech; it's something for everyone.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, I feel like people my age, our age, um,
Yeah. How old are you?
I don't know if I want to say that
Oh,
online.
you don't have to say it if you don't want
No,
to.
no, I'm 30, so I'm not that old, but
I'm older
yeah,
than you.
you don't look it. You don't look it.
I know.
But
People think I'm like 22, 23, and I'm like, nope, add 10.
it's not a bad problem to have.
I know. I've been told that too.
But I find like a lot of people, like I haven't run into a lot of people my age that care about it. And I feel like I don't know, maybe part of the reason people gravitate towards crypto is like they're presented with a problem or a situation that makes them question what they're doing in their lives. And definitely the older generation has experienced that
Uh-huh.
a lot recently. And then our like people our age, like life is like we're in the sweet spot of life for the majority of people. They're like out of college, they got their job, they're building their family, they're having their first kid or whatnot. Like life's good. They haven't hit like the midlife crisis or anything like that. Um, so I feel like maybe something like that is what it takes to get someone into crypto. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think definitely like most of my friends do not question the status quo, what's going on right now in the world. And so that's difficult because I come from a different perspective of I don't really see current institutions and systems lasting for the long haul. Not saying like, oh, it needs to go or anything, but I think it's changing. And some of us are seeing, some of us I truly believe we're visionaries because we see the impact of this. We see how the current situation isn't working, especially with the financial situation. And I don't know like any of my really close friends that have really dug deep into the financial system, the central bank,
Mm-hmm.
Federal Reserve, all of that. And so it's difficult for them to understand why I'm so passionate about it. And I've actually had a really interesting experience over and over again where the men in my life try to tell me to be careful and that I shouldn't be doing. And I've
Interesting.
never had an experience like this before. And I love guys. I'm not like, feminism and
Yeah.
F guys, like F men, like nothing like that. But I was like, why does this keep happening? And so I just see there's a big paradigm shift happening. And I think some people feel maybe a little bit threatened by that. And then some of my younger friends that have said, like, well, no, that's going to threaten the dollar. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, why? I don't know, like where you're coming from. Like, so I just have a
Oh
very
man.
different perspective of what's happening right now and the bigger shift that's happening as well.
That's interesting that you have like people coming out of the woodworks that are like trying to like tear you down. It's almost like because you're talking about something that's different than them. I think maybe like this is just a crypto thing in general that also I feel like the saying of like uh what is it? It's about CrossFitters. What's when something about CrossFit? They never stop talking about CrossFit. I feel
Yes.
like crypto people, um, unfortunately, once you get into it, like you can't stop talking about it because it is
Yeah.
transformational for a lot of people. But I think it's interesting that people are coming out of the woodworks in your life to like kind of tell you you're wrong for something. With
And it's been at least like 10 to 15 men in my life that I love that
yeah,
have been like, oh, you need to be really careful with this. And are you sure? And you really need to diversify and you should do this. And I'm like, well, like, why should I listen to you? And I'll ask them questions too,
yeah,
and then it kind of exposes how they actually know nothing about it. And usually it's the people that know nothing that feel threatened by it, maybe, or they don't understand it. And then they're trying to tell me what to do. Very interesting.
so like projecting their insecurities on you.
Yes.
So you
I
find
even
that
had a friend, sorry,
oh no go yeah.
I had a friend who bought like $2,000 worth of Dogecoin,
Okay.
only Dogecoin. And
Okay.
he also lectured me on cryptocurrency. And I'm like, I am not listening to you.
Did he at least buy it at a price that is lower than what it is today?
He made some money. I don't know what he's done with it.
Oh man.
So we'll see.
Wait, so he bought Dogecoin and then he's lecturing you on crypto.
Yes.
But
It's wild. I don't understand.
but they don't even know your like full portfolio. Like you're not like putting out like here are all my investments. You're just saying like I really like crypto, right?
Exactly. Well, and I do say like I go more in depth in it, but I'm not, I don't give specifics. I'm not telling people like, oh, I'm all in on this coin or something like that, or how much money I've invested at all. That's the one thing that I've learned, that you don't tell people how much crypto you have because that
Yeah.
makes you vulnerable.
Yeah. I mean, because if people know that you have it, I know that's a fear that people have is like, well, if I'm holding my money and people know I'm holding my money, won't they come after me? So you always
Uh-huh.
gotta be like, just imply maybe I have some, maybe I don't.
Yeah, maybe I'm holding on to it. Maybe I have like a custodial patient. Who knows?
And you said like that the people that are coming out of the woodworks and like kind of you know telling you to be careful, they're saying diversify. What do you think on diversification? I know like some people in the crypto industry say you should diversify, and then there's other people that are like you really shouldn't diversify, and that it's I don't know, it could be a polarizing topic. So what do you think on diversification?
Yeah. And so people are coming out and telling me what to do. There's people saying, like, trying to give me financial advice. And then you have the people that are saying this is threatening the dollar, or it's all a scam, or, China's going to take it down. Like, so there's so many different
Yeah.
perspectives, and being like, you need to be careful. Like, this is dangerous. And then, so diversification, do you mean like within crypto, or diversifying investments in general?
Even just in general. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying like you shouldn't diversify. I just know that there's some people that like when it comes to investments, they if they find a good one, they're just like, well, why would I go elsewhere? And
Yeah.
and some people are like, well, how many can I put in this basket of investments? What do you
So
think on that?
yeah, I had a good chunk of money in a wealth management company.
Okay.
And I decided to take that out because I started realizing that the wealth management companies, a lot of them are making money on us and our money.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of market manipulation and things happening, as exemplified with the GameStop and AMC
Oh yeah.
situation. So when I saw that, I was like, wait a second, I don't want someone else controlling my money. And so
Yeah.
I took it out. And I think with COVID, like, I didn't get any penalties. It was weird. And I had a Roth IRA. And so that was all pre-tax. And so I ended up putting it all in crypto, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend.
Yeah.
That's me. I have all my investments in crypto, but I do plan in the future for sure to diversify, buy some stock, buy some maybe like investment properties over the years. Like right now, I'm a teacher on a teacher salary. So I
Yeah.
don't have like a whole lot of excess funds. And right now, I don't want to put any money in the stock because I do think we will see a big correction based on everything that's been going on. And then buying houses is nearly impossible right now. So that I was heavily considering buying a condo, and I'm not going to do that right now.
Yeah. Because you'd be
Yeah.
buying at the top of the market, and it may just keep going up, but it's just wild. I think there's an article saying house prices went up like 24%, 25% over the past year. And I think over the past 5 years or so, I think the cost to build a house has went up like by 400%, something wild, which is,
Yeah.
and it's just like, what are you like, how are you supposed to afford that? Like,
Especially in Orange County. I mean, I can't find anything really under $600,000 for like a 1 bedroom or studio.
that's a lot, like $600,000, like that used to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess anymore it's about what you have to pay to get a house, which I just remember like, like a $300,000 house being like a lot, like a big house back when I was growing up.
Yeah. I don't even know if you could find something for $300,000 in Orange County. And that's the question, am I going to stay in Orange County? So there's just a lot of moving parts right now. There's a lot of things happening in the world. I'm just keeping my options open.
And crypto was one of those things to help you see other things, other parts of the world. Do you think it has opened up your worldview some because you have to question the narratives that you've believed for so long?
Absolutely. And the financial narrative, the financial paradigm that we live in is like, I remember like even just going into certain things like debt. Like why is debt this accepted like consciousness that we believe in it? Like we need to have debt in order to live in this world, which is true, but that's the structure that has been built for us. And so a lot of it has been breaking down my own belief system. And for myself, I actually never really carried debt. Like I have some school loans, but I never carried credit card debt. I never if I could pay something off, I paid it off. And
Yeah.
I had friends that I would have arguments with over the years because they would say, well, no, I need to keep the car loan, even though I have $60,000 in the bank. I need to keep this car loan because I need to build up my credit score. And for
Yeah.
me, I was like, that doesn't make sense at all. You're going to pay another $1,000 in interest or whatever that is. So I already was kind of like, I felt a little bit disconnected from the paradigm. And then when
Yeah.
crypto came into the picture, I definitely went down different rabbit holes and learned more about it. So it totally opened my eyes.
Yeah. I think that's something that's as cool about crypto is that you said like when you first got into it, you just dove into it and just like, well, first you were skeptical, right?
Yes.
And I was that way too. But then once you get it, once you're like, oh, I see what's going on here. And like, you start to see and put the pieces together, then you like start studying everything. And since it is related to finance, then you have to start studying financial concepts and investment strategies that you may never have had to do before because you had someone to do that for you. Like
Yes.
you could just work your job, put your money in your 401k, maybe add some to a Roth, just go through the motions without ever having to think about what you're actually doing. But I think it's cool how crypto causes you to think about that.
Yeah. And I just love that you're touching on that too, because it it was just that's what you do. Your employer matches your contribution to your 401k and you work until you're 65 and you get social security. Like all of these systems. I even heard a talking like when someone was discussing how social security came about.
Yeah.
And that was something they need to use propaganda to sell that idea to convince people that they needed it. And now it's something that's widely accepted. Like, or is it social security, or it's like when
Um,
you retire and you get like, payments or whatever.
yeah, I think maybe I see that's one of the things that I never paid attention to and probably should have. I think we're so financially illiterate in this country, because like you talked
Yeah.
about in math classes, they don't, and just the education, they don't teach you about these things and they don't tell you how to, you know, think about investments, how to create a budget and all this stuff. Maybe some places, but in general, it's not done. So I don't even, it sounds about right what you're saying, that's social security.
Yeah.
And it seems, if you're listening to this, maybe go do your own research on this topic, but it seems to be something that they would have to like manipulate people into thinking is a good thing to get their new system off the ground. So
Yeah. Well, and it's just something, it's paradigms that we've bought into and believed that we needed. And even like retiring, like why retire at 65? If you love what you do and you want to work, why not continue working? And a lot of people do. I just see the entire way that we've been doing life is changing and it's
yeah,
shifting for the better. And it's going to be more centered in the heart, in freedom, autonomy, and sovereignty. And cryptocurrency provides that for us as well.
I agree with that. And I think there's something that you hit on, was you said living on a teacher's salary. And we all know what that means, that you are way overworked and way underpaid. And that can be really frustrating because like you're doing some of the most important work, educating the kids, because if they're not educated, they grow up to be adults that aren't educated. And that's not good for anyone. But the system that's in place is just not really fair for you guys. And it's like, how do you solve it? And from my perspective, I think cryptocurrency is one of those things that levels the playing field. Like it allows people to invest in an asset or something that has growth potential, especially now, right? Especially now that has growth potential, that from all walks of life. Like you don't have to just be rich to get into it. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. And it does level the playing field because even with wealth management companies, like they reserve certain types of portfolios for the super wealthy people. And it's all kind of like behind closed doors. Like we're presented with the information in a way that's so confusing that we don't even know how to digest it. We don't know what's going on. And we think, oh, we're too dumb to really understand it. Like, of course, I'm going to give my money to someone else because they know how to invest it properly and with low risk, medium risk, high risk, And by empowering the people to invest themselves, I think it will help a lot of people build their own actual wealth instead of being plugged into this system and the paradigm of we need to be, like I need to contribute to my 401k. And you can do that. Obviously, there's nothing wrong with that, but
Yeah.
it's making us become aware of what's happening, especially behind the scenes, as we saw with some of the market manipulation and even in the 2007 crash. Like I remember I went to Berkeley in 2007 to 2011 and we talked a lot about that,
Yeah.
about the crash and how it happened and how the banks were bailed out. And it was just kind of like, but you're not helping the people.
Yeah. Yeah. All this money is given to the bank, but then all the individuals, it's like, now what do they do?
Yeah, people lost their homes and people got loans that they should not have gotten. And that's really what spurred the creation of Bitcoin. And when I realized that Bitcoin was created as a response to protect the middle class from situations like the 2007 crash, that's when I think really was sold on this, because I was like, this is what it's about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it takes like, just, you got to get some perspective. And like, when you're in college, like you don't have a house, right? So you're not like
Yeah.
thinking about that, but then, maybe some people were, but as you get older, you're like, I want to buy a house, and then you can't, or like, it's just like, it's all stacked against you. And then you start learning about this. You're like, oh, okay. I see there's this new thing out there called Bitcoin. Not really new anymore, but it's something that can help you out. at least
Yeah.
on your
And
journey to financial freedom and independence.
absolutely. And just on our episode number 3, we interviewed Litecoin leader and talked about how to buy a house with crypto. And really, it's all about how to take out a loan against your crypto so you don't have to sell your crypto. And that's something I'm going to be doing with a down payment when everything kind of like
Yeah.
evens out in the field. And she brought up a statistic that I think like 47% of millennials are not homeowners.
Mm.
Like we're in our late 20s, early 30s, and half
Yeah.
of us don't own a home. Like that's crazy. Think about our parents when they bought their first home.
Yeah. Well, anymore, like, my mom bought her house, it was like $65,000, so it's like that you can do that. And I was looking at places in Denver, and there are apartments, like 1 bedroom, old apartments that are like $150,000 for the apartment. That's like the cheapest one. And it's like, how can who can afford that? I mean, people can afford that, but like, can they really afford that? Do they really want to be paying $150,000 for like a 1 bedroom apartment in this like old, crappy complex?
Exactly. Especially when you're single. Like I'm single, I'm not married. So if I like had a dual household income, it'd be different, but it's so difficult for a lot of us.
Yeah, and houses here are like $500,000-$600,000 for a townhouse. I guess
Yeah,
maybe
it's
that's the
crazy.
way of things and how they're going. But I think it's because, at least my perspective is that, because you mentioned the dollar declining in value, and that, people looking for places to put their money. And I think houses have been one of those places where people learn that they can put their money in a house and then the money grows. And it's been like that for since 2008, 2009, right? It's been a pretty good trajectory for that. But right now, if you didn't have that 5-10 years ago, if you were in a position to buy a house, then now you're kind of priced out of the market.
And that's where Bitcoin comes in because you can compare like there was this guy named Crypto Jeb, and he made the comparison of Bitcoin to a house. Now, when Bitcoin went from $60,000 to $30,000, people are like, oh my gosh, it lost its value. But if you had a house and it went from $100,000 to $75,000, you still have a house.
Yep.
You still have a Bitcoin or crypto.
Yeah.
And so it's like this intrinsic value. And the value in Bitcoin is not going away. And
Yeah.
people are afraid of it crashing. I'm like, no, here to stay.
Yeah.
And you don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy like, $100 worth, and it's like buying a fraction of a house, kind of. That's the way I compare it. So it's a really good way to make an investment, and then you can see that grow if you're not ready or you can't invest in a house yet.
And you mentioned, so I think this is important. You mentioned financing your Bitcoin. And I've heard something where you never really want to sell your Bitcoin. Like you want to buy it and hold it. So can you
Yes.
talk on that?
So I didn't realize this until like I did some research. I'm like, oh, this is super easy. So you can actually take out a loan against your crypto and then pay that back. So if you like get a loan for $1,000 on your Bitcoin, you need at least twice of that for collateral in whatever system that you're choosing.
Yeah.
And so you'd put in $2,000 of Bitcoin as collateral, but you still have however much Bitcoin that you put in. So when the value of Bitcoin goes up, you keep that value. But if you needed that $1,000 for something, you can still get it out and spend it. And then you can pay it back. And there's some other situations where you can like roll over the debt. I don't know much about that. That's the extent of my knowledge.
And then that's totally fine, because it can get really complicated really quickly. And that's the decision you probably have to like study before you go and like figure out how it works and all the risk you're taking. But that's super cool that you can have an asset that is really easy to get and access, and then you can get money to use from that asset without having to sell that asset.
Exactly. And like interest rates can be as low as 6%, but your Bitcoin is going to be growing more than that per year. So overall, like you will be coming out ahead on your investment in Bitcoin.
Which is, I think it's really cool. So,
and I was like, yeah, and I wanted to buy a house, and I'm like, I don't want to take all my money and put it into a house and lose that, the value of it or lose the gains. So this is a great way to have the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Yeah. Leveraging one asset to get another asset, which is not, that's not necessarily a bad strategy at all. Now, I want to know, what is your favorite crypto?
Like my favorite coin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cardano for sure. ADA. So I something, they like pull at my heartstrings because what they're doing with their technology is providing blockchain technology to students in Africa to just tracking their grading system and using technology to better the educational system over there. And I've heard critics say, well, it's not going to fix things because you need to fix like A, B, and C to really like bring real change. But I'm like, it's a start, and they actually are in the right place to help support that. And Charles Hodgkins, he doesn't care about the price and the hype of the coin, which says a lot. They've been around for a bit. And I think it's just going to be a solid project. I know they have smart contracts. They're going to try to roll that out, I believe, October 1st, and so we might see stuff happening there. But I think they've been a little bit slow to move, but it is a competitor with Ethereum in a way.
Okay.
But ADA is my favorite.
All right. Yeah, I know that. I know a lot of people, it has a big loyal following, and it's done pretty well through like this past downturn. But I think it's pretty, I didn't know that they were doing that in Africa, but I guess they could be doing that everywhere where it's needed. Right.
Yeah.
Well, have you seen the video called it's called By the Numbers? It's like immigration by the numbers.
No, I haven't.
So it's a really interesting one. I saw it on YouTube a few years ago, but basically the guy's talking about the role immigration plays in countries and like country growth and all that, and the impact that can have. And a lot of people think like, and I'm not like bashing immigration or anything in this. But the video is very like, so it's very informational, where he talks about how many immigrants we're bringing in per year and how that affects our population. And basically at the rate we were bringing it in, we were going to double our population in the next 100 years. So if you just think it's crowded where you're at now, just imagine twice as many people. And
wow.
And so he's like, one of the arguments people use for immigration is that, we're helping these people in these poor countries coming to America, that people that need help, we're helping them. He's like, but the problem with that is that typically the immigrants that come here are the most educated, most well-off in their respective regions, the most capable to leave those regions. And so those are the ones we're coming. So we're taking the most capable people from their from where they're at, and we're bringing them here. So they don't have their best and brightest per se. And he said one of the things that needs to switch is how can we then incentivize them to stay so that they can help facilitate change in their native countries, their native lands, so that they can like grow and develop and get out of the poverty that they're in. Which I thought was really an interesting concept and thought. And when you bring up the Cardanos empowering the educational system in Africa, which means you could, empower the educational system anywhere, right?
Absolutely. And I didn't even think of it that way, but it makes so much sense. And when I started looking at immigration as well, that's a topic that really is politicized, unfortunately, and it makes people really emotional on both sides.
Yeah.
You're pro or against immigration, but when you really start diving into the specifics and facts and data with it shows like, there's such if we're going to let some people in and they're going to immigrate, that's such a small amount of the people that are experiencing like starvation in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, are we really doing the best we can by allowing, and I'm not saying we shouldn't allow people in, I'm not against immigration or anything. But it's just kind of like, what impact are we actually making by focusing on our immigration laws rather than other things that could empower? And it can come from the private sector. It can come from people like you and me, and, the Divi project, they're going and doing education in El Salvador. And then I think it was Open Minded Bitcoin was talking at the conference. They're going to Haiti, and they're going to be helping people there too with, I think it's like a Divi node. But there's people that are, doing good things in the world in cryptocurrency, which isn't necessarily highlighted, I think, by the media. And so people don't realize how many really good-hearted people are working within this space.
Yeah, I think it's cool that you mentioned the Divi project, and they're definitely a cool project to check out. I know a little bit about them, but I think the big thing that you said is how they can go across borders. So it's not like everyone has to come here to get their problem solved. Like the whole world gets opened up to people. And like, I know with El Salvador, with them adopting Bitcoin, most of the people, I think it was over 70% of the country were unbanked. And now they have the ability to be banked, right? To be able to store wealth and value, which is very, very powerful, I think.
Yeah, it is. And even so with El Salvador as well, and them using Bitcoin, a lot of, I think it was oh, I forget the percentage, like 40% of their income is remittances or
Oh, wow.
remittances. I think that's the word, where
Yeah.
it's literally coming from like other people are sending their family and friends money here. But with that, the banks take a very large percentage, like 30% of that transaction. And then people that are going to the bank in El Salvador run the risk of walking away with money from the bank and then being robbed. Like it's actually dangerous. So there's
Ah,
all these things, and now they can do it on their phone. I mean, it's such a great way to really help the people there.
without terrible fees, and then no one knows they received it. It's not like everyone's going to the to the bank at the same time of day, which imagine it
Uh-huh.
was just like, all right, this just reminds me of like the National Geographic shows like Discovery Channel, where it's like, well, the herd is moving, so it's time to prey on them. There's people out there in the world that do that, which is not cool, but
Absolutely.
that just image just popped in my mind. It's so weird
Totally.
when you talk about like because I can imagine like the criminals are like, well, we know that if 40% of the population has to go get remittances from the bank, then that's like a trend that they can see. It's like people going to work, the traffic going to work, so they know it's like, all right, well, we're just gonna watch and see who's careless, who's alone, right, and then we'll go and rob them on the way back, which is not cool, not good. Don't do that.
I agree.
But Bitcoin solves that problem. I think that's one of the cool things is people think crypto can be for everything, but I think it's like it can influence everything. But I think there's certain situations where it's like, what is the use case for it? And I think that like that's the use case that you wouldn't think, a problem that can solve that you wouldn't think it would solve. So I think it's really interesting.
Absolutely. And it's not just a bunch of criminals and, dark net activity going on with crypto.
Exactly, which is a common like false belief people have. So Jill, we're getting close to being out of time.
Okay.
But I wanna let people know where they can find you.
Yeah. So I'm at the Bitcoin Babe on Instagram with underscores. So the underscore Bitcoin underscore babe. And then
Cool.
I'm also, my YouTube channel is Blockchain Millennials, and that's with John and Jess.
Perfect. So the Bitcoin Babe and Blockchain Millennials. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you, what do you think the future has in store for us? I know we've had this kind of bear market trending sideways in the crypto market. We've lost probably half the value from the highs back in May, and people, there's a lot of fear in the market, or people don't know what's happening, but there's a lot of things happening on the sides. I want to know what you think the future has in store for crypto over the next year or so.
I honestly have just completely detached myself from the price of all crypto. And I was shocked by how okay I was overnight when my portfolio went down 50%. I was like, that's fine. I know the long term game, and that's what I'm in for. I think we're still kind of like in this point where it could go up and be a massive bull run, or maybe we're hitting the bull market or the bear market. But either way, and I'm not leaning either. I think maybe more towards the bear market, and I'm okay with that because then I can buy more and get prepared for the next bull run.
So you're greedy.
Yep. I want to buy more.
No, I understand that as well. It's like I think that's one of the reasons why it's going down is because there's people that are like, if it goes down, I can buy more. Because if you do, like you said, you view it the long term, then short-term price fluctuations don't bother you as much. And so if someone's just getting into the space now, what would be some words of wisdom you would tell them?
Dollar cost average in. That's something I did not do and I regret doing. And so when I would get a big chunk of money, I'd be like, I just want to buy it all now because I assumed that it was going to be going up like
Yeah.
way more. All the influencers like, oh, it's going to the moon. We're barely starting the bull market. Well, look what happened. And so I would dollar cost average in. So what that means is set up a certain amount that you're going to start investing every single week or month. Maybe it's $100 a week, and just do that.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than taking like $10,000 and putting it all in at once, where some people I know people that bought an entire Bitcoin at 30,000 and went down to, or at 60,000 and then it went down to 30,000. I'm like, well, you don't want to buy it all at once. So
Yeah.
that's my number one tip.
Yeah. Okay. So dollar cost average, don't buy it all at once. And if someone's just getting started, what coins would you say they focus on for doing that?
I would stick with the top 10, and I wouldn't try to diversify too much. So I would probably stick with maybe 7 or less coins, and you can't go wrong with Bitcoin. And then if you want to do something like Ethereum, Cardano, there's a lot of stuff going on with XRP. So I don't know if I'd really dabble in that one unless you do your research. But just make sure to look into the coins, see what you trust. And I would invest in a project that has been around through a bear market. So that's been here probably since 2017, because a lot of projects will fail. And so you don't want to invest in something that hasn't lasted through that lull.
That's good advice. Now, if someone was like, I still don't know, where can they find you again?
The Bitcoin Babe on Instagram. And then if they want to schedule with me, they can, my link is in there too. It's calendly.com/the Bitcoin Babe.
Cool. So they can schedule a call with you directly and you can understand their situation and help them out. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm really there for the newbie. That's like, how do I get started? How do I do this like safely?
That's great. Well, Jill, it was great having you on. I enjoyed the conversation. I look forward to having more conversation with you in the future and seeing you at more founders events.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Dylan. I really enjoyed this conversation as well.